There's the weekly here on the Blue Room. Hope everybody's doing okay. I've got 3 wonderful guests joining me today, live on YouTube or listening by the podcast. Hope everybody's doing well. First and foremost, back on the podcast after a long time, it's Peter McFarlane. Pete, how are you doing, mate?
I'm absolutely fantastic. Thanks, Matt.
I see you've got your, is that the Spirits of the Blues vinyl on the wall behind you there?
Well spotted, it is, yeah. I was going to play it, but then I thought, no, copyright and all that, so it's up on the wall.
Oh yeah, YouTube with that hot on that sort of thing. We'd be getting taken off air within seconds if that started playing again. Lyndon Lloyd from Toffee Web also joins us as well. How are you doing today, mate?
Doing very well, mate, as we all are.
Yeah, wonderful time at the moment. And Adam Jones, who kindly stepped in as a late sub today. Sarah Halpin's been wished away to cover the girls tonight as well, but Adam from the Liverpool Echo. Fresh from what I've seen on Twitter, mate, it was a 15-hour shift on deadline day, was it?
Yeah, it was a long old slog, but I'm pretty sure I've recovered on my sleep now, so happy to be called upon by the boss as a late sub.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll be speaking a little bit about deadline day later on and the dealings Everton have done, whether we're happy with them or not, and how the squad sort of shapes up for the rest of the campaign and what Everton's ambitions should be. But one player, I think, who I wasn't really intending on speaking about today, lads, but caught the attention earlier on today, actually played a match, was Tom Davies for England under-21s, captaining them in a mad game against Andorra, scoring a really good goal as well. And I'll come to you on this one first, Pete, before the other lads. And I think we've spoken pretty much on this show, certainly, about how well every player in that side played on Saturday. And Tom's performance, while sort of been mentioned as, he did okay. And we've moved on to speak about Mina or James or Dom or somebody else who was, a 9 out of 10 in that game. Maybe hasn't got the credit he deserved. And, and I think he played in probably a bit of an unfamiliar position at the weekend in front of that back four. He had a tough job to do to replace Allen in that role. But he did it pretty well in the main, didn't he, mate?
I think so, yeah, and he switched sort of to right back at one point as well, didn't he? Because I think he obviously knows now that he's under a lot of pressure with the signings that we've made. I think, when you look at how many appearances he's made for Everton, he's made over 100 appearances now, and I think, to be honest, we're not really sure where his best position is. As a fan who going to watch him week in, week out, I still struggle to really define what type of midfielder he is. Hopefully now with the new signings that we've made, it can take the pressure off him a little bit in terms of some of his defensive work, and he can show us what he can do. Certainly when you've got better players around you, it can bring out the best in yourself. So I'm hoping that Tom Davies can really step up now. But certainly, at the weekend, I thought he was fantastic, and he did a really good job when he moved out of position towards the right back role. So fair play to him.
What did you make of his performance, Lyndon?
Yeah, I echo everything that was just said. Yeah, he's an interesting one. Sitting in front of the back four, it's if he's not taking the full responsibility, which I think he was last season, if you got Gylfi Sigurdsson, who wasn't showing any desire to do much of anything last season, the onus was on Tom to do all the work, and he was doing his sort of headless chicken role. But I thought he did really, really well against Brighton. And I'm hoping now that with that, and obviously this evening having scored that great goal, and now having the room, as Pete said, to kind of just work his way back into form and not have all this pressure on him. I think that this season is going to be an important one for him. I kind of take the view that his career might be a bit of a slow burner at this point, which I think is fine. Not everyone's going to, come straight out the traps when they're 19 and just take off and be a superstar. So I'm glad that Carlo's stressed that he wants him around, that he's not sort of been cast off onto the scrap heap down into the championship, whatever. And we can just use the next couple of years maybe to sort of just find out what his best role is and see if he can really establish himself in the side as not necessarily a first choice starter week in, week out, but someone who can really be depended on to come in and do a job.
And I suppose that's absolutely fine, isn't it, for Tom Davies to be there? He doesn't necessarily have to be that player who we're going to be dependent on in the first 11 every single week and necessarily a linchpin of that midfield. It's going to be a long season. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be players that probably test positive for COVID as well, and that's going to be something that Everton are going to have to deal with. So I think for Tom, and even probably applies for the likes of Iwobi and certainly for Ben Godfrey as well in other positions, maybe even John Joe Kenny and and Niels and Kunku. I think these lads have got to be ready and got to be ready to take the chance, because they're probably going to get a fair few games this season, even though we all sort of know what the first 11 is.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, Tom is probably a representation of something that's happened wider in this transfer window. Obviously, we've seen the first 11 improve massively with the likes of Alan Decore and James Rodriguez just walk instantly into the starting 11. But I think in terms of the whole squad as well, I think that's improved. And we're seeing that in, the cup games, especially where we've seen, a bit of chopping and changing from Ancelotti. We've seen all the new players coming in, the likes of Sigurdsson, Bernard, Iwobi, Nkunku, Davies. They've all stepped up and they've all performed really well. And, it kind of shows that the new transfers have managed to elevate the levels of those around them as well. And I think in terms of Tom, I think it's almost very simplistic. Last season we were playing a 4-4-2, which places a whole lot of emphasis on the two central midfielders in particular. They've got to do a lot of stuff. They've got to do all the defensive minded work in terms of shielding the back four. They've got to pick the ball up off the back four. They've got to then create chances for those going forward as well. They've got to be tidy in possession. All of this, like it places a whole lot of responsibility on somebody. He's still a young lad. It's a lot of responsibility to be placing on his shoulders for the latter part of last season. So I think maybe he's just benefited from having an extra body in midfield. I think maybe the system has given those midfield players a bit more defined roles. Like we know what Alan's going to be doing, for example, when he's in the team, or Delph or Davis, for example, when they've stepped into that role. We know what the Decore role is. We know what the Gomez role is, etc. So I think maybe the new system just helped out Tom Davies much more. And then, as the lads have said as well, when he moved over to right back, I thought he was really, really good. There was one particular challenge late in the game inside the box, which was just a really, really important tackle at a crucial stage of the game. So it's great to see him performing like that, to be honest. And as Lyndon rightly said, it's good to see Carlo Ancelotti giving him that sort of vote of confidence almost before the start of the season, thinking, look, you are here, you are in my plans. And it's good for a young lad to have that before the season. So fingers crossed he can continue on this path.
Yeah, because I suppose going into that game, a lot of us probably expected Fabian Delph to get the nod, didn't we? Because he played really well in that cup game in midweek. I don't know if there's any concerns there with fitness and him coming back. But I'll come back to you on this one, Adam, because I think it's something we've spoken about on pods in the past. And then, Pete and Lyndon, feel free to jump on the back of it. It's that position in front of the back four is one that I've sort of looked at, and I've seen he's played there a lot for England under 21s. He played there tonight. I think in the past, Marcus Silva said he thinks he could have played there as well. I don't think Ancelotti's necessarily spoken about it that much. Probably because primarily up until this season, that position didn't exist in Carlo's system. But I sort of look at that position and think, I'm not entirely sure he's got the attributes to play there. But clearly, at England youth level, they're quite happy with him doing it. Ancelotti played him there at the weekend. And obviously, these people know a lot more about footy than any of us, absolutely. But I don't know, maybe that's a role that he could sort of start to craft out and start to learn a little bit more.
It's interesting, isn't it? Especially with the likes of, Jean-Philippe Gbamin still injured. We will need somebody to take over that position maybe when Alan's not there or Delph's not there. Like it's good to have options in that position. I think it's interesting in terms of Tom because, in his first performance this season against Salford at Goodison, he played a bit further forward in what was, more of like a Gomez or a Decore sort of role. And I thought he played really well in that game, to be honest. Level of the opposition kept in mind, but I thought he was creative on the edge of the box. He had a few chances to score himself. And I think that maybe nods to the versatility that he can bring in midfield. And it's a really good string that he can add to his bow if he can line up in those defensive midfield positions, because it's maybe something that we haven't really seen a lot of at Everton in the past, but I think he more than showed that he was capable of doing it against Brighton. Brighton and no Salford, they're really good opposition, good Premier League opposition. Yeah, they've been playing really well, I think, so far this season, and they're unlucky to have the points total that they've got. So for Tom Davies to step in against a side like them and put in that kind of performance, I think it is really impressive. And fingers crossed, it does nod to the fact that he can play defensive midfield in the future.
He just needs a bit of consistency now. That's going to be the thing now, is just to find some consistency and show that he can do it on a week in, week out when he's called upon. Because he's had these games where everything just seems to go wrong and he's putting the ball out of play and giving it away and that kind of thing. So I think that's his next step. And as I said, this new environment with the new players, hopefully he'll have that chance to do that now because there's not as much pressure on his shoulders.
Yeah. If you're watching on YouTube, got any thoughts on Tom Davies? Do let us know in the comments where you see his best position. What sort of role do you see him playing this season as well? Do let us know on that one. But we'll go back to deadline day as Adam was speaking about there. A bit of a shift for everyone. I think I was saying on one of the shows earlier this week, I felt really sorry for the reporter on Sky News, Sky Sports News, who was covering the Theo Walcott deal. Bless her, she was on it, I think, from 8 a.m. in the morning till about 11 o'clock at night, locked in a box room at home. Looked like she'd aged about two years by the end of the day. But he's, I think, the deals. One deal that was expected in Ben Godfrey, who seems like a good lad and a good player. I think everyone's really happy to see us get that one over the line. The goalkeeper one's a little bit more interesting, isn't it, mate? And while not necessarily somebody who's going to come in and take over from Jordan Pickford immediately, just probably someone a bit more reassuring in terms of someone the manager's probably got a bit more faith in than Jonas Lössl or João Virginia.
Absolutely. I think one thing it shows is that I think Ancelotti is going to give Pickford as many chances as he possibly can. That signing doesn't say to me that he's looking to replace Pickford just yet. I think it's like you say, it's just more to put a bit more pressure on him and to bring an experienced head in if it comes to the point where we have to take him out of the side. I think Ancelotti will stick with Pickford for now, and I think we'll probably reassess it either in January or at the end of the season. Obviously, that was a reason why we were looking at short-term deals rather than going out and spending money on a goalkeeper. We wanted to get someone in on loan. And again, it's up to Jordan Pickford, just the same way it's up to Tom Davies to show his worth. Now it's up to Jordan Pickford. We're playing some fantastic football. The defence has been superb this season. He needs to cut out the mistakes and he needs to go back to basics, really. The pressure is on him. It's a different kind of pressure he's under now because he can't just hide behind a bad defence. He can't hide behind the fact that we're not playing well and he's under pressure all the time. He's under a different kind of pressure. We're challenging towards the top end of the table. We're looking to get results. And it's so crucial that he keeps his head and that he improves and works on those aspects of his game. I'm hoping that he goes away with England for the next week or so, and he can maybe get a little bit of confidence back. I can't see him starting for England, to be honest with you, given his form at the moment. But I wouldn't be surprised if he did. But I just hope that he can get his head right, and the Merseyside derby will be a huge game for him. So yeah. All in all, I'm not surprised that we didn't go out and splash the money on a new goalkeeper just yet.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, isn't it, Lyndon? I think this is going to be really fascinating now because it sort of feels as though Everton have done all the things they can to try and get the best out of Jordan Pickford, aside from going out and actually signing someone better than him and seeing how he responds to that. The managers have backed him in the past. They've got better players around him, a better defence around him. They're playing, building out from the back football, which should suit his distribution and his qualities. Everything seems to be there for him now, including a much more dependable competitor in Olsen. And I think what's going to be fascinating for me is that I've seen a lot of people talking about how not having competition is been an issue for Jordan Pickford, and how if he gets dropped by England, then perhaps that'll, it'll be like a light switch on and it'll click him into gear, and all of a sudden he'll be focused again. He'll be that goalkeeper that we had in his first season at the football club. I'm not so sure about that. And I think if he does get dropped by England, as Pete said, over the next few days, and that sort of status he's got as England's number one, which is still intact at the moment, is taken away from him, and he comes back to Everton, and all of a sudden there's a fella there that Everton have had to draft in last minute in the transfer deadline because they're not sure about him. I've got to be honest, I'm not entirely sure how he reacts to that and whether that'll be a positive reaction.
Yeah, I have the same concerns because we don't know really how he's going to react, because he certainly seems to be one of those characters that could go either way. I think you were mentioning it yesterday on the Subs Weekly about, I think maybe Dave did, about how he reacts when he concedes, and he's beating himself up and kicking bottles around and that kind of thing. So I think with the England thing, I think England have 3 games, is it?
Yeah, they got 3 games. Yeah, so
so I would expect even under the best of conditions, I think that Southgate's gonna play someone else for at least one of them. If he puts Jordan in for the first one and then goes from there, I think from a psychological standpoint that would be better for Pickford. But yeah, when he gets back, I mean, I almost wish that it wasn't the derby that was the next game, because then he could kind of just ease himself back into something that was a little bit less high pressure, particularly in view of what happened at Anfield a couple of years ago. So yeah, I think I share the same concerns that you do, that he might not be equipped to deal with it the way that he should, the way that we'd want him to. I think if we'd sign Romero, he would have a lot more. His position would be under much more immediate threat. I don't know that much about Robin Olsen. I remember his performances vaguely from the World Cup, when I think he was pretty decent. I like the fact that he's tall, and he can dominate his area if that's what he does. So yeah, it's really the message. It's good from Ancelotti's point of view in terms of supporting Pickford. Is the message is, I brought someone in who's not necessarily going to replace you straight away, but if kind of last chance saloon, I'm going to have to bring him in if you can't perform. And as you say, with all the other upgrades, he's got nowhere left to hide now. This is the most important position left in the team that needs to be addressed. And Ancelotti's shown that he will do. He won't even hesitate to do so if he feels he needs to. So,
I suppose we are jumping to some conclusions about how he's going to react to this, Adam. And we don't know him. I mean, maybe with that in mind, you've spoken to him after games and for interviews and pieces in the past. And while we don't see everything that goes on the training pitch or behind closed doors, having spoken to him and seen what sort of character he is, probably a little bit closer than all of us. What do you think will be his reaction to this sort of, I suppose it is a challenge in inverted commas, isn't it?
Yeah, he's not the kind of character who's going to shy away from this challenge, in my opinion. He's the kind of character who obviously does feel very confident in his own abilities, and I think to an extent quite rightly so, because he has proven in the past that he's a very, very good goalkeeper. He's done that on international duty, of course, and fingers crossed that he will get the chance to do that again. I think it's interesting with England's goalkeepers at the minute, because I think is it Dean Henderson and Nick Pope are the other two options. Yeah. Henderson's not had much game time this season, and Nick Pope had a bit of a dodgy week himself, didn't he?
Oh, so, it was a proper 1 out of 10, wasn't it, from him against Newcastle?
Exactly. So in terms of, if you're looking at that in terms of Southgate, then do you just go with your experienced man in that case? Maybe Pickford's still at the front of the queue in terms of those England options, and I have to say fingers crossed for Everton's sake that he is, because I think it will be a really good opportunity for him to get a few minutes under his belt, just have a solid couple of games with England. He seems to really enjoy it on international duty, doesn't he? Like he just, there's something about the way the camp works that kind of often does boost his morale a little bit. So fingers crossed that can happen again. But in terms of Olsen coming in, I think that it is, as the lads have said, I think it is a reasonable challenge for him. And I think, as Lyndon says, it is almost like a last chance saloon for him, because it's like, we've done everything else that we can do, barring signing a top quality goalkeeper, to give you the opportunity to go out there and perform. So, if this is the thing that raises Pickford's game, and we've just got another senior goalkeeper in on loan for the price of it, that's perfect for me. I think it's a really shrewd move if that is the case. So we've just got to have our fingers crossed that Pickford can rise to it.
Yeah, it's going to be one of them, isn't it? Either this triggers a response from him and he plays better, or Ancelotti sort of gives him enough rope to hang himself with, and by the end of the season we can say, there's the clear and obvious issue. Just while you've been on air, actually, there's been a report emerged from the Telegraph. I don't know if you had much chance to do any reporting around this, Adam, but just be interested to get everyone else's thoughts on it as well, saying that Everton were effectively priced out of a move for Sergio Romero because United wanted 10 million for him. Is that one you would have just paid the money? I mean, anyone, would you have just gone down that route and paid the money for him, or you're quite happy that Everton just walked away from that?
I think that for £10 million, if Ancelotti isn't sure just yet about where he sees Jordan Pickford's future, if he still believes in Pickford, that there is the top quality goalkeeper that we've seen in the past is still in there, I think £10 million at this stage I think that we've done it the right way, to be honest with you. I think we need to reassess that position. I think give it time, see how we get on. I know that we all want Pickford to get better. We would love for us to have gone out and signed a top quality keeper to come in and immediately take over that position. But I just think it's for the good of the squad and the good of the teams as well, because Pickford is a part of that group. I think it's best that we do wait. We assess it over the course of this season, and then we go out and get out. If we need to, we can then go out and spend big money on a new goalkeeper. But I don't think we needed to necessarily go out and splash a load of money on a keeper who we then have on a 3-year contract.
I think that's absolutely spot on, to be honest. I think if there were to be any question marks over whether Romero or Gazzaniga or Olsen was to be the man stepping in, I'd have some reservations about paying a fee, to be honest, because as Peter rightly says, if they're just going to be challenging Pickford, they're not going to instantly take over. We've still got question marks over Pickford himself, over whether he's going to still be the number one man. I think it's much better to just have a loan at this point, try and assess our goalkeeping option, even up until January, probably up until the end of the season, more than likely, and just give it another year to assess, because we've improved a lot of areas in the squad over the last few months or so. So I think the transfer window that we've had I'd still rate it like a 9 or a 10 out of 10. To be honest, it's probably still not finished in terms of like outgoings, with EFL windows still open as well, so it could even still get better in that sense. But in terms of like a goalkeeper, we would have loved a top quality goalkeeper to come in and challenge Pickford instantly. But would Sergio Romero for that price have been that absolutely top quality goalkeeper? I'm not particularly sure, to be honest. He would have been a good option, on loan, but 10 million I think is probably a little bit pricey for that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. The 10 million doesn't sound like a lot for Argentina's number one, but he was third choice at United, pushing to leave. I think there's probably an element of them not wanting to sell him on the cheap to a team that's now going to be a rival for the top 4, top 6. We hope. I think I think that the finances, we were kind of running out of wiggle room a little bit towards the end, and whatever happens not whatever happens, if Pickford's form continues to decline, then he's going to become an expensive problem that we're going to have to deal with, because he's on an extended contract. We know we paid 30 million for him to begin with. So I think they looked at it from a financial point of view and thought it's better to bring someone in to just make sure that Pickford's looking over his shoulder, but to give him every chance to prove that he can rediscover his form, and then then you don't have a big problem on your hands.
Just quickly wrap up with some comments we've had on YouTube. Ian Clark has said, I suppose Tom Davies could be a modern day Alan Harper. Would you go along with that, lads?
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, could be. Why not? Lavivid has said, if Harry Kane was at Everton, would he get a place in the first 11? Probably not at the moment, to be fair, mate. With Dom well. But I think he's also said, in fairness, I actually saw you tweeting about this, Adam, this week. The squad has strength and depth. Got to see Bernard stick around. You were pleased as well that he didn't go to Roma in the end.
Oh, definitely. I think especially with Theo Walcott moving on loan and Moise Kean moving on loan, I think when those reports came out that Roma were chasing Bernard, I was thinking to myself, we're letting a lot of attacking talent leave the club towards the end of this window, to be honest. So I was really happy to see Bernard stay, because I think he's looked loads better in that central role. I think at times last season on the wing he got a little bit lost and he wasn't really affecting games as much, but in that central role, he has so much more space to be able to pick out those intricate passes that he's like. If he's on top form, I think he adds qualities that nobody else in that Everton squad particularly has. So I think he was a good one to keep on for this season.
Yeah, he suddenly feels like quite a versatile option, Pete, doesn't he, Bernard?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's the thing about Bernard, is that he can play in a number of different positions. In his first season, he's kind of been a stop-start a lot with his Everton career because of injuries. It seems like every time he sort of starts building up a good run of form, he gets another knock. So he's been quite unlucky in that sense. But going back to his first season at Everton, his partnership with Luca Dean was absolutely phenomenal down that left-hand side. So I'd love it if he could rediscover that form, but I think Adam's right in terms of him playing in a more central role, especially with better players around him. Again, as I said, and playing in a different system, which plays to his strengths. You know, he's got a low centre of gravity. He gets into little pockets of space. He can turn, you know, quickly. He's got, and he can pick a pass with either foot. And he seems to be the type of player who likes very quick pass, quick passing, quick flowing football. And that's the type of football that we can play now, certainly with the likes of James Rodriguez. So I think Bernard, not only for his versatility, but also because of his goal threat. Whether I'd like to see him score more, but I think that in this side he will do.
Yeah, I'm pretty pleased he's still here as well. I think he could definitely do a job in a few positions. Ian Clark said Jordan is in the last chance saloon. He doesn't respond positively. He'll be gone this season. And Stephen Fagan has said that we even considering letting Pickford regain form, considering the consistency and frequency of his mistakes. It's been so poor for so long that I would argue that we can't wait and see what happens with him. I mean, I suppose it's one of them, isn't it, Lyndon? It's as much as we've all been delighted with the signs we've made and the transformation in the team has been revolutionary. The manager said, didn't he, in the summer, it's going to be evolution, not revolution. And while we want to see widespread changes and world-class players in every position on the pitch, it's maybe the club just haven't got enough money to go out and sign an elite goalkeeper at the moment, haven't invested what they have already.
Yeah, I don't think they do. And if you think, elite goalkeepers are going for massive money. If you look at Alisson and Kepa, not that he's turned out to be elite in any way, shape, or form, but still, someone paid 70 million quid for him. I
suppose that's part of shows the problem as well, is that there's not many of these elite young goalkeepers around who are going to just come in and be part of the team for 10 years.
Yeah, that's exactly it. As you say, I think the evolution has actually turned into revolution, whether he wanted it to or not. Just the way that we started, and just to echo what Dave was saying on another pod, I think it was last week, it feels like a time when we actually, if we could have addressed everything, now would have been the time to do it, because I think you strike while the iron's hot. And the way that things are still in flux at some of the other teams that ordinarily you'd think would finish above us, there's actually a massive opportunity this season, just with the way things are. So I feel like if we'd had the financial wherewithal to do it, it would be the time to put your foot down and really really ramp up in a couple of positions. But yeah, at the end of the day, we're like everybody else. We're losing money with fans not in the stadiums. We don't really compete with the biggest clubs financially anyway. So yeah, there's a lot riding on Pickford. And if he keeps chucking them in, then you get someone in who's hopefully a solid 7 out of 10 every week. Who's not going to make blunders week in, week out, and just have someone solid back there, and then look to address it later on.
Yeah, I suppose the next transfer window is only, I think, 87 days away as well now. So, you've got another deadline day not far off, Adam.
I'm excited for that.
to get stuck into. What Linda was saying there sort of leads us on to what I wanted to speak about in the final part of the show, and that's just expectations for this season. Now, I'll come to you first on this piece. Famously positive Evertonian when it comes to ever I've spoken to you in the past, and whenever you've been on here or when you see it on social media. And listen, we're sat here top of the league now, been one of the two really consistent sides of the season with us and Villa. United have conceded.
I thought you were going to say us and Everton Women.
Us, of course, yeah, well, absolutely, yeah.
Just
smashing everybody at the moment, aren't they? To be fair, but it's one of them. It just feels like it's going to be a really weird season, doesn't it? And Everton are playing really well. The squad's really balanced. We seem to have cover in, good cover in 90% of the squad. We've got a world-class manager, and already we've seen City concede 5 at home, United concede 6 at home, Liverpool concede 7 at Villa. I'm just going to say that one again. Liverpool concede 7.
What was that?
And it just feels as though we're dead settled in a season which is going to be a bit crazy. And with that in mind, with Everton's start of the campaign and the sort of nature of a wild landscape that is the Premier League at the moment, have you adjusted your expectations and your hopes for this season over the last few weeks based on performances and what's been going on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm realistic, and I don't want to get carried away, but we're going to win everything, don't we? I think. Listen, it's at the end of the day, we've got to enjoy the ride at the moment, haven't we? It's been so long, I think, since we've had this level of optimism, in and around the club, with both teams, I say the men's and the women's teams, both teams absolutely flying. There's this positivity within the club and amongst the fans. Twitter can be a very toxic place, but I think we can all agree it's been fantastic over the last few weeks. It's been brilliant. So it's, I think in terms of expectations, I think this is a massive opportunity for us, certainly, to break the top four. I think everyone would agree with that. There's a lot of teams in transition. There's a lot of teams who, like you say, have slipped up already. When the I don't even want to say it, last season's champions get beat 7-2. It shows that the league is open for anyone, to be honest with you. But I mean, realistically, I'd like us to progress in the League Cup and then hopefully have a good FA Cup run as well, and really have a push for that top four.
Sorry, mate, before you finish there.
Oh, yeah, finish, yeah.
I was just going to say, are you the same, Lyndon? I mean, Pete's saying he's not getting carried away there, but I absolutely have over, the last few weeks. I've been looking up parade routes and where I can get tattoos of Champions 2021. Getting t-shirts printed already. What about you, mate?
I'm really trying to keep grounded. Because I mean we've been here before lots of times, but by the same token, with Martinez, that beginning of that season was different. We started that one off really slowly. We had 3 draws to start with, knocking the ball around our back four for half an hour, and then it finally got rolling. But even the win at United was a surprise, and the draw at Arsenal felt like a win. I feel like we're above that level now. That we can not necessarily go to Arsenal with the business that they've done in the window, but we can go to the bigger teams now and actually, have equal share of the ball and be as dangerous as they are. For me, it's all dependent on whether we can keep that first 11 fit for most of the games. There's as long as you've got most of them, there's enough of the pieces will still remain. With Decore and Alan and Rodriguez, if they're not necessarily all there together, there's still enough pieces from new pieces that I think will be able to sustain the momentum. But keeping your match winners like Rodriguez fit, I think is going to be absolutely key. I mean, if he plays 30-odd games this season, then I think we really do have a shot, because he can create goals out of nothing, win a game on his own, and we haven't had that before. So I'm trying to not let myself run away with it, but at the same time, I mean, we've made a great start, and that Liverpool result, that will hopefully start sowing some doubt in their minds. Once you have that winning habit, which I hope, like Leicester in 2016, we're going to start having, where it just becomes you just win and you believe you're going to go out and win. The opposite, I hope, is going to happen to Liverpool now, where they just think, oh well, maybe we're not invincible. And this season is going to be nuts. And, as you say, with the COVID thing, you just don't know. And so you got them, you got Chelsea who haven't gelled properly, United in chaos. Tottenham can go either way. I mean, they're great now, but, 2 weeks' time, Jose could, flip his lid, and then it's completely different. So as long as we can be the consistent ones and just coast through it and be thereabouts at the end of the season, I mean, the potential is amazing. So I'm trying not to get too excited, but I am a little bit.
I think, I mean, Lyndon's already mentioned Leicester 2016 there, Adam, in regards to Everton. But I think that there's an interesting point there, and I've got a piece coming out on the site later about this, actually, in regards to this, how the season is and having composure and calmness. And I just sort of feel as though, with everything that's going on and football being in such a state of flux at the moment, and with players and staff not really knowing where they're coming or going based on COVID and crazy results on the pitch, it just feels as though we've got the best fella possible at the helm of this football club in Carlo Ancelotti at the moment, just to be calm. And I loved his interview after the game at the weekend when it was like, oh, you're really surprised by how Rodriguez has come in and done so well. It's such a hard league to adapt to, and he's had a tough time recently. And he just went, football's not that complicated. It's dead simple. There's 11 lads on the pitch for both sides. The goal stays in the same position. It's not it's not that complicated. It's simple. And I just feel as though with all this madness going on, having someone like him at the head of all this is going to be really beneficial to us.
With all the madness that's going on in the world, yeah, but with all the madness that's happened at Everton over the last few years as well, I think it's just a nice little change, isn't it, to have just that calm head and just going, yeah, football's really not that hard. You just like get 11 players on the pitch every time. Goal stays in the same place. You've just got to be better than the opposing 11 lads on the pitch, and that's the long and short of it. And I think, yeah, you're quite right. And I think I was speaking to Leon Osman, funnily enough, the other week, and I was talking about momentum at the start of the season and, how important that could be. And he mentioned, obviously, the 2004-05 season where, there wasn't a lot of expectations on Everton going into that season, having sold Rooney and all stuff like that. But then they just got that little bit of momentum. They hit on something good early in the season, and they just built and they just never really lost it throughout the campaign. And they managed to obviously finish fourth that season. Now, I'm not saying Everton are going to finish fourth this season, but
oh, be higher than that, mate. We'll be well ahead.
in terms of expectations, like I'm kind of in the camp that, if fans want to get a little bit carried away with it, then why not? Because at the end of the day, I think maybe with the age of social media over the last few years, we've forgotten that football is actually meant to be enjoyed. You're meant to actually have fun watching football. But sometimes on social media, you see that, if you're seeing fans getting excited, people are already going, oh, you're going to regret this in a couple of weeks or in a few months, and bookmarking this for later for when it all goes tits up. And you just think to yourself, oh, just enjoy it. Just live in the moment and enjoy it. And that's why I've loved Everton's social media over the past few weeks. All the Spirit of the Blues stuff. There's just a whole wealth of positivity, not just around the 11 players on the pitch and the staff around the club, but with the fan base as well. And I think that could be as important as, momentum on the pitch in terms of progressing Everton forwards, because, we do want to have this sort of positive attitude around the club. Why wouldn't we? And, if some fans want to think that, we're going to be challenging for the title or challenging for the top four, then let people think that, then why not? Everyone's entitled to their own opinions. And, if they want to be uber positive after, Everton winning 7 games in a row to start the season, then yeah, that's fine. That's fine in my book. I think on a personal level, in terms of expectations, I'd want us to win a trophy. I think, that's got to be the biggest thing in my head, that we've got to eradicate that trophy drought, to be honest. It's been far too long for a club of this size to go without a trophy. So I'd be going full throttle.
Isn't it nice? Sorry to interrupt you, mate. Isn't it nice that we've got that quarter final just there now? It's it's boxed off, and we've got a couple of months to. Everton might be in completely different form by then, but it's just a nice feeling to have that in the bank, isn't it? In December.
Yeah, exactly, and it's just three one-off games away from winning a trophy and securing that European football that we all want to see in the process. So yeah, I think in terms of the rest of this season, I really do want us to go for a trophy, but just any sort of improvement in our league position, it won't be hard in terms of where we finished last season, of course. But a distinct improvement. We're already seeing a distinct improvement on the pitch, but as long as we can see, the continued signs of this improvement throughout the campaign, then I think Everton fans are just going to be delighted with it. And if this momentum train carries us, into the realms of like European football or trophies towards the end of the season, then absolutely fantastic in my book.
It's going to be really interesting to see if that positivity carries on next week, isn't it? When we're counting down the days to the derby, it's like 4 or 5 days away. Will we all be so bullish and boisterous about our chances then when it's actually on the horizon? But why not? Like you've all said, why not get carried away? Let's enjoy this while we can. Just a couple of more points I wanted to mention before we finish off today. Pete, you mentioned the girls and how well they're playing at the moment. Obviously, they're in action tonight. By the time this goes out, they've been playing Manchester City. But at the weekend, they were in action against Aston Villa, and there's no other way of saying it. After demolishing Birmingham to get to the FA Cup final, they went one step again and absolutely destroyed Aston Villa at the weekend, didn't they?
Oh, it could have been double figures. It was absolutely brilliant, absolutely fantastic result. It doesn't surprise me, to be honest with you, though, because the way they've been playing, they've been absolutely superb so far this season. And they've made a lot of new signings in the summer. Valerie Gauvin, who's a French international, has come into the side. She's still getting up to fitness, so she's been making a lot of substitute appearances. But she scored 4 in five games, and I think 4 of them were off the bench. So
I was going to say, her minutes to goals ratio must be absolutely ridiculous this season.
Oh, it's unreal. But she had that minutes to goal ratio in France as well. I think she scored 16 in 14 games. Last season, or around those sorts of figures. She's got a fantastic record in the French league. So, she's signed with big expectations, but so far she's really showing a quality. We've got players like Hayley Razzo, who actually came in January, but because of everything that happened with the lockdown and everything, she wasn't able to make a debut until this season. She's on another level in terms of international recognition. She's a huge star in Australia. She's one of Tim Cahill's mates as well, but she's come in and she's played phenomenally well. Really, helped the side. She's got pace. She's a fantastic attacking outlet, and she managed to get 2 goals against Villa at the weekend. But yeah, it just seems to be that momentum has started to build. The new signs have fitted in and hit the ground running, and now you can see that the improvements in the side. Some of the football playing is absolutely fantastic. It's a very competitive league towards the top end with Arsenal, Chelsea, and Man City in particular. Three really, really great sides. Man United as well have made some great signings, but I still think that our girls can go out and really, really push for those sort of top 2 positions. And obviously we've got an FA Cup final to look forward to as well, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's in the bank for them as well, of course. I mean, I don't know how much of the girls you see in this season, Lyndon, but going back to what Pete said earlier on, I don't think it's any coincidence that both of these teams have started off with just winning every single game, and Finch Farm must be a wonderful place to be at the moment, with everybody rocking up with just a big smile on the face. Top of the respective leagues, smashing it in cup competitions, and there's got to be something to that, hasn't there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the way that they've taken on, like Chelsea, the biggest team that they've taken on and beaten them, and it's testament to the way that the club has actually rebuilt the ladies' team over the last few years. Because there was a point a few years back where it looked like they were just heading in completely the wrong direction. And if you looked at the England teams that have played in the World Cup, you've got a lot of players that used to play for Everton, and all these players like Alex Greenwood had left. And so it's fantastic credit to the club and Willie Kirk and the way that they've built this side back up. And where the ladies team is going to be, the name Everton is going to be at the forefront of with this big, you can feel it, this big lift up of the women's game. And I think it's fantastic because, we looked like we were going to be completely out of that conversation a few years ago. So yeah, it's great.
I think that was evidence in Dom's interview, wasn't it, Adam, after the game against West Ham, where, he just scored a hat-trick. He fired us into the quarterfinals. I think it was, his 8th goal of the season in 5 games. And the first thing he says is, before I speak about myself and the team, I want to just say congratulations to the girls and their result. And, it's cliche to say, and, people probably might roll their eyes a little bit at this, but I don't think it's the case at every club where there is that link and that bond between all aspects of the football club.
No, exactly. There seems to be a real sense of togetherness, especially this season, doesn't there? Like, I've seen a few Willie Kirk press conferences this season, and he's mentioned, obviously, he's had messages from the likes of Ancelotti and Marcel Brands after games this season, and that might only seem like a small little gesture, but I think that does represent that kind of togetherness between the men's side and the women's side. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to watch a lot of the women's side because the fixtures keep clashing with the men's team, which is a real frustration, to be honest. So it's good. Have you seen there's a petition for the Everton v Newcastle game to get moved so that fans can watch the women's FA Cup final and the men's game against Newcastle as well, which I think that's great to see, to be honest.
That's a no-brainer, that, sure.
Oh, you 100% just think, why wouldn't you just switch around that Newcastle fixture? There's surely somewhere that you can put it that's not clashing with a women's FA Cup final. So fingers crossed that does come off, and I'll be able to see the FA Cup final at least. But from the highlights that I've been able to see from the women's team, it doesn't look too dissimilar from the men's team in terms of how they've gone about this season. They've brought a lot of new players in. over the course of the summer, and these just seem to be gelling in so well together. And it's that word again, momentum. If you can just keep that momentum going throughout the opening stages of this season, it could just spitball, and who knows where they could end up. Obviously there are some really tough teams in the women's division, but you've got to be looking, top 3, top 4. That's got to be the goal for Everton now. The start of the season has kind of set themselves that kind of lofty ambition. So fingers crossed the momentum can carry them towards that.
Yeah, sky's the limit, it feels like, for both teams at the moment. So just one question I wanted to ask you before we wrap up today, and feel free, whoever wants to answer this one first. Ian G1878 on Twitter has said, how much of an impact is us not being there having on the players? We all know Goodison can be equal parts 12th man and unbearable pressure. What do we reckon to that one, lads? I mean, I don't really want to touch that one. I'll let one of you go first on that.
I think if we were in there now, the atmosphere would be absolutely incredible. If we were allowed to go into Goodison for that derby, could you imagine the atmosphere that we generate? And I just feel like now that we've got that feel good factor and that feel good momentum, we can take that back into Goodison when we're allowed back in. I take the point that sometimes the pressure from the crowd can affect players. Having said that, if it was as simple as that, we would have seen a massive upturn as soon as the lockdown was eased and the players were back, and we went. So I can see the point that sometimes the crowd can get on players' backs, but the professional footballers at the end of the day, they need to be able to deal with that sort of pressure. I just feel that the positive energy that we provide and the backing that we give that team far outweighs any negativity that might come through.
Yeah, spot on. I think Pete's absolutely right. Would we have made the flying start that we've made? I think with the signings that we've had, probably. But yeah, he's absolutely right that this derby would be, it would just be an occasion to end all occasions, the first few minutes with that crowd. And it's sad that it's not going to be a while before, the fans can get back in there. But I don't know, we'll see how it goes.
Is it more? Just going to ask you there, Adam. Do you think it's more not necessarily the atmosphere and the noise? It's maybe more to do with those moments where the team's maybe 1-0 up and they get paid back, or they go 1-0 down. I think like they did against West Brom. You can imagine what every football stadium in the country has fans that when the team concedes a goal against the team, they feel like they should be beaten. There's that angst and that nervousness, and you get the odd person shouting. It can get a little bit nasty at times, but maybe it's in those moments where the lack of a crowd, and you can just take a deep breath and go, right, we're better than these. Let's just get back on it.
Yeah, I can see the point. And I think, especially when you're looking at Goodison Park as well, with what Everton have been through over the last few years, you can understand why there would be those senses of angst or frustration in those kind of moments in games. But I think what we're seeing across the whole Premier League, and we mentioned these surprising results before, the 7-2 against Liverpool, the 6-1 against United, 5-2 against City. I think even Leicester being beat at home by West Ham quite comfortably is, flying under the radar a little bit. I think maybe the absence of fans across the Premier League this season is maybe, especially for teams going forward, it's maybe taking the weight off their shoulders a little bit. They feel like they're a little bit free to express themselves a little bit more. Maybe they're less scared to make any sort of mistakes, and that's maybe why we're seeing all the goals flying in at the minute. So it swings and roundabouts, isn't it? We want to see some entertaining football in the Premier League, and I think we are seeing that now. But obviously we are desperate to have fans back in the stadiums, because luckily enough I've been allowed to go into grounds over this time, and it's not the same. It's awful. Like it's soulless. In a way, it's interesting to hear what the players are shouting on the pitch, but I don't want to hear what the players are shouting on the pitch at the same time. I want to be surrounded by 40,000 Everton fans who are just loving James Rodriguez pinging one into the back of the net. Like that's exactly.
It just sounds like they're all saying, "Give it to James anyway." That's all cold.
Well, yeah.
Give it to James. Give it to James.
But I mean, that's exactly what and I think the lads are spot on. If we were going into this Merseyside derby now, we saw it a couple of years ago when we drew the derby 0-0 when we weren't in the best run of form. How much an atmosphere in a derby can really have an effect on the players. If we were going into that derby with 40,000 fans on our side for this game, then I just think it will be an absolute occasion, as Lyndon says. So fingers crossed we're allowed some sort of fans in stadiums soon, but who knows what it's going to be like, especially with the restrictions round here at the minute as well.
Yeah, there's a petition been going up as well, hasn't there, as well, regarding fans back in stadiums. But like you said, mate, safety does come first. They're very jealous. You've got to see Hammers in the flesh, so already, you've got to say. But yeah, I'm sure we'll all get there eventually. We are out of time today. Thanks very much to all the lads for coming on. And anything coming up in particular? Adam, you said you were finishing a piece off before you came on.
Yeah, it was just funnily enough, a piece on how Everton have dealt with the coronavirus crisis so far, which is going out tomorrow morning, which I think has got a few interesting details in it.
Good stuff. Look out for that. Lyndon, anything on top of your web at the moment you'd recommend getting stuck into?
Not much right now. Just we're in the kind of the lull period between the games. I'm going to write something about the window, just overall, generally where we are and that kind of thing in the next couple of days. But yeah.
Good stuff. Pease, are you writing anything at the moment, mate?
Well, no, I'm not writing anything. I'm just off to watch Match of the Day 2 for the 100th time this week.
Good stuff. Yeah, do check all that out. Thanks very much to the lads for joining me. Thanks for watching on YouTube if you're watching. If you're listening on iTunes or any of the other podcast platforms, give us a rating, give us a review. It's always appreciated. It always helps, these sorts of things. But we'll be back again on the usual feeds with Kickabout tomorrow. I think Rob is doing a music edition about his favourite 90s albums with Les, Kate and Keith. So that should be good. Adam nodding approvingly there. I think it sounds like it's going to be up his street. But
I'm going to listen to that.
There you go. All usual stuff will be out later in the week as well. So thanks very much for listening. And we'll speak to you again very soon here on the Blue Room. Thanks very much, lads.
You're welcome.